Hi, it's Leah Richheimer with the Ladies Talk Show, and we are on chapter 5, page 102, and I'm going to read a few sections. You guys are thinking of questions, and then we'll take them afterwards, okay? Are you guys ready? We are talking about giver and receiver, and this is like very intense, okay? But here's the thing. Anybody who's following the homework and doing the actions of thanking and being a greater and greater receiver, you should have by now already started to see bracha pouring into your home. Okay, so more is coming. Okay, blocks to being a receiver. We're going to look at actually what stops us from receiving. So what stops a woman from being a great receiver? There are many societal and emotional factors that are crucial to examine in order to eliminate any blockages to our receiving. But by far the number one cause is the lack of understanding of our role as a receiver, and just how important it is in bringing brachas into our home. This was never brought to our attention before, so we understandably did not give it the importance it deserves until right now, hopefully, okay? Before we begin to describe some new receiving habits, let's quickly examine the stumbling blocks that might stand in our way of becoming a receiver. There are many societal factors at work here that make it challenging to be a receiver. In a sense, we've actually been taught to rebuff gifts from our husband. After all, if all the world is a grand play for power, who could argue that a giver appears much more powerful than a receiver? Who would want to be a lowly recipient at the mercy of some benevolent giver? Or perhaps the glorious independence is king philosophy that has swept the world subtly groomed us to reject any show of caring that proves that we cannot do our jobs ourselves. Or maybe witnessing ruthlessness in the world leads us to believe that any thoughtful act must have ulterior motives. These are all the reasons we don't receive. Something else to consider is that maybe everyone is so confused about men's and women's roles that any caring behavior that feels condescending is immediately suspect. As an example, a man opening a door for a woman used to be a sign of chivalry. At some point, it turned into a telltale sign of whether a man was a chauvinist or a supporter of women's rights. Ever since, men have remained confused about what to do. But worse, women are left stranded in a world where no one seems to care about anyone half the time. So they don't know what to do. Should I open it and risk getting my head chopped off? Or should I, open it for him and be the nice guy? Like, what, am I going to be thanked? Am I going to be my head chopped off? This confusion trickles to us, and we also were left bereft of being taken care of. We have systematically trounced the giver at every turn since the day it became socially unacceptable to be a receiver. By examining the various issues that may affect how we might be suppressing our husband's need to give to us, we can gain tools for how to overcome them. This has profound implications for closeness in marriage, as you will see. Okay, next section, rejecting behavior. There are also emotional reasons that we may not be able to accept gifts from our husband. Perhaps we're angry at our husband, so we refuse to let him get the satisfaction of pleasing us. Or we push our husband's gifts away because we feel uncomfortable with the attention. Or as a byproduct of low self-esteem, we don't feel deserving of praise or thoughtfulness. Maybe we have trust issues and therefore can't believe that a gift is genuine. Or maybe you see what a long list is. It's just shocking we can receive it all with this list, okay? Or maybe we are perennially annoyed with our husband's actions, so we punish him by rejecting his gifts, which translates into a rejection of him, which unfortunately has the unintentional side effect of training him to refrain from giving to us in the future. I'm going to get my tissues out. This is too sad. Okay. It may be that our rejecting behavior is a combination of all of the reasons above reasons. Only you can unravel the great mystery as to why it may be personally hard for you to receive from your husband. This takes introspection. Of course, we may be receiving less because of our husband's inability to give or his own selfishness, but by all means, if there is something we are doing to compound the issue, we would, of course, want to do everything in our power to overcome it. And while introspection is terrific and can lead to many helpful insights, even if you never come to fully understand the deep reasons why you might resist receiving, it is certainly crucial to your own happiness that you overcome every obstacle to do so. There are deep spiritual ramifications of this dynamic as well. Mishnah Rav Eliezer states that those who do not appreciate what another person does for them, Hakar Satov, will ultimately deny the good that Hashem does for them as well. If, on the other hand, we show appreciation to our husbands, we will be strengthening the same muscle that we need to draw closer to Hashem. Putting in this effort to receive may be quite challenging in the beginning, but rest assured, it will be regarded in Shemayim, heaven. It will be well regarded in heaven. One last point that may come as an earth-shattering shocker to those of us women raised to conquer the planet. It's all right to need your husband. There, I've said it. Okay. It's even all right to need him desperately at times. Okay. Independence and self-sufficiency are indeed valuable traits, but not in a marital relationship. We must deprogram ourselves from a lifetime of misinformation. Having the pleasure of depending on our husbands is a right that has been stolen from us, and we need to get it back. We start by letting ourselves need him, and then we receive his blessing with grace and gratitude. The Torah Chaim delivers the most wonderful lesson to us. He explains, it is the act of passing the cup to the wife that turns a man's cup into a kos shel bracha, cup of blessing. That is, even though he is the one who recited the bracha over the cup of wine, and as such, he is the one who initiated the flow of heavenly blessing into the house. Nevertheless, that blessing cannot remain there without a kli kibul to contain it, and that kli is his wife. Only through her can the blessing become a permanent part of their household. Thus, we see how crucial is the role of the receiver. We need to give ourselves permission to revel in our role, for this is who we are at our very essence. Okay, we're going to start with questions. Go ahead.
Okay. So this whole concept about receiving and being dependent and independent, it's a big one. We're getting questions pouring in on this one.
Okay, fine.
Chevy says, so it's such a big job to reteach yourself to receive in this world of independence. It might take so long. How do you
reteach? What's the word you said?
Reteach yourself to receive after you've grown up in a world of independence.
Right. Okay, fine.
And it might take so long. How can you sort of keep yourself motivated through that whole long process?
I'm a big fan of Post-it notes. Okay. Make a Post-it note, stick it inside your mirror, outside your mirror, in your car, on your car, not necessarily so that your husband or kids will know what it says. So you could say a big R. And they're like, what's the R for? And that's to remember. It's for to make the rice. I didn't want to forget to make the rice. I don't know. But make it write a note to yourself in a way that you can remember all the time that you're the receiver. I have students who read this chapter again and again and again and again because they recognize how crucial and important it is. This is how God created the world to be. This is the Bria. This is the real world. This is reality on steroids. There's like no joke. This is not a smoke screen. This is not whatever. This is, if you were to take everything away, all the smoke screen, all the curtains, and look at reality, the way the world works, the reality of the situation is the husband's the giver and the wife's the receiver. So anything else that's on top of that, anything that's keeping you from being the receiver is sheker. It's not emes. It's not real. Sheker is falsehood. So knowing that and being devoted to truth and being devoted to bringing as much bracha into your home as possible, which is a very nice side benefit from doing the emes, okay, and following emes. You'll see as you start rolling forward on this, you won't need the R Post-its so much anymore because it becomes an ingrained habit because there's such a big payoff. So I wouldn't worry so much about how much it's on your head, try and push the things away, read the chapter again and remind yourself, but you will see once you get into the flow of it, it's so brings so much bracha and is so satisfying that that will be motivation enough. And if it isn't, read the chapter again, but that should work. We've got 10,000. We got 10,000 people who have already tried this, and whatever. I don't know if it's 10. It's probably more, but so we have 5 million views on the show. But the you should just know that this stuff works, not because Leah Richheimer is so smart, but because Hashem created us, and He knows exactly what will make us the happiest, and this is it. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Rena says, I think I'm too independent because I don't feel like I can really rely on my husband. He has shown me time and time again that I can't count on him to be there when I need him. So I stopped asking him. How can I make myself start trusting him if he hasn't been trustworthy in the past?
Very good. So you need to understand one thing. A man is only as trustworthy as his wife trusts him. So if he's not trustworthy, I'm sorry to say this, a little harsh, but if he's not trustworthy, very, very likely, 90% chance there's something you're doing that created him to be less trustworthy. So he could have started out that way. He could have been born that way. His whole childhood, he wasn't trustworthy. He didn't do what he was saying he was going to do. He didn't show up when he was supposed to. He never came on time. So it could be he started out very untrustworthy. But it's very interesting. I had a friend whose kid was starting to little things around the house were missing. And he didn't have anything to say about it, and she felt like he ate the last cheesecake and didn't own up to it. There was even some money on the table. She wasn't sure what was flying, because it's hard to, in a very busy household, it's hard to sort of see what, what exactly is going on. And did I put money there, or I forgot and I put it somewhere else? It's very hard to be sure, but she just had this sense that something was off. So what's the advice I gave her? Tell him where the keys to the car are. Tell him listen, if we're ever in an emergency, I keep this $100 in this medicine chest in this bottle here, so that, if there's ever anything wrong, but you'll know. So if that ever happens and you need to get money, it's there. Do a whole bunch of things that show him that you trust him, because somehow he's getting, mixed messages or whatever. I don't know if this is the guaranteed way, and I don't know if this is 100% the right thing. You'd have to go to a chinuch expert or whatever, but this is what I told her, and this is what worked for her. Is she did that with her son, and the entire situation turned around, because when a person is granted trust, they become more trustworthy. So in her situation, it seems like she asked him a few things. She didn't like the way he did it, and he probably didn't do it wrong. My guess is that it was not her way of doing it, right? And women always are certain that their way of doing it is the right way of doing it. Okay. So you really need to examine what it is how you're judging him and what you're demanding of him, and whether it was, he was definitely doing it wrong, or he just wasn't doing it your way. And I would trust him with little things. Little thing at a time, say, if he's never on time, say, we have this thing, PTA meeting, whatever. It starts at 7:15. A lot of time, when we're late, I feel really bad, because then another person can jump in front of us, and then we miss the other appointment and whatever. What can I do to help us be on time for that? Help you be on time for this? Do you want me to text you throughout the day? Do you want me to come pick you up from work? Do you want me to, whatever, what can we, and test him on little things, and sort of support him in being trustworthy. And hopefully, God willing, over time, if you keep, putting trust into him, it'll pay off. It may not be guaranteed. And then you have to figure out what a plan B is, how you're going to deal with a husband who never can be on time. And so you say, listen, I'm taking a separate car to the PTA. Would that be okay with you? They're like, no. Listen, we got to make a compromise, because you don't mind being late. I do mind being late. You can't, you have a hard time. It's challenging for you, and, work. And we'll get to a whole, how to communicate in a way that your husband can hear it and that has effective results. We will get there. But for now, just know that your efforts in this building his trust is is where his strength is going to come from. Okay, good luck with you. Good luck on it. And just stay consistent in your trying to trust him on things little, and then grow it and grow it. Excellent question. Okay.
Okay, we had a couple of questions from independent women. Now we have the flip side from Panina. I feel like I might have become a little too dependent on my husband since working on this idea throughout our marriage. I don't know how I ever lived on my own without him before. He's just so competent and capable, Baruch Hashem, but now I feel like I'm a lot less competent and capable than I used to be. Is this healthy and normal, or have I become too dependent?
It sounds fantastic. First of all, don't fix what ain't broke. If it's working, it's fine. If you're feeling badly about yourself because you feel less competent, take on a big project, come up with something new, get creative, or ask your husband, say, I want to work a little bit on being more competent. Do you have any ideas for me? Put the issue in his lap. But being dependent on your husband, I'll tell you, I have women who are afraid to be too dependent on their husband because they go, Leah, what if I lose him? So it's a fine line between being able to be survive and being able to be dependent. And I get that. I totally get that. But it's better to lean on someone and then fall than it is to spend your whole life standing up straight with never being able to lean. Leaning is one of the joys in life. And if you find yourself that you are less capable, meaning you can't get dinner on the table, or your in-laws are coming for a visit and you just can't cope, and you want him to do everything. Can you make the bed? Can you fix the, and can you order dinner out? And can you, whatever, if you find that you're doing that's codependency. I don't know. I'm not an expert in this, but if it's a problem, if it's causing problems for you or in your marriage, then you need to talk to somebody, a rabbi, a rebbitzin, a therapist, a wise confidant. But for the most part, over depending is, if it's working and he's happy and he feels like he's really taking care of you, that's probably a good thing. Okay, good question.
Okay, the question from Kaylee. What if I change into being a good receiver quickly and my husband comments, wow, you changed, and he's afraid that I'm just being fake?
Good question. You can say, I'm not being fake. I'm trying to be the best wife I can. You can tell him if you want that you're learning about shalom bias and you're working on it. But that might put too much pressure on you. So I would probably just say, I'm changed. It's not fake. I'm just trying stuff out because I'm trying to be a better wife. And I hope you appreciate that. That's it. He's not going to, I don't think he's going to question too much that you're a better wife, So here's what everybody has to do: their own homework to see what they do to reject being the receiver, what problems they have. Like, you and do introspection on yourself. Like, am I not receiving from my husband because I just never knew I was supposed to? Is it because I'm annoyed with him and I have so many resentments and it's just hard for me? Is it because, society told me that being a receiver is so pathetic and wimpy? Like, I don't want to be that person. What is it for you personally that stops you and slows you down from being the receiver that you can be to bring more blessing into your home? And when you start to recognize and look, and it might take time, you don't have to instantly know, or you might have a gut instinct right now of what stops you from being a receiver. But once a person can can isolate and figure out this is what's stopping me from being a receiver, that gives you the power to be able to receive more. So let's say, for instance, you have resentments because your husband does something that constantly that is very, very troubling to you. Let's say he's always yelling at the kids, screaming his head off at the kids. So then he turns around and he might give you something, or or whatever, and I'm not receiving from him after how he's treating he's not listening to me. I've told him a million times, don't raise his voice to the kids. And he keeps raising his voice and screaming. There's no reason. If he told them, stop eating with your mouth open, oh, please stop eating with your mouth open, they would stop, but he has to scream, stop. So how do you expect me to respect him, Leah? How do you expect me to receive from a man who doesn't listen to me, doesn't validate my feelings about what he should do? How do you expect me to receive from this man? I get it. It's hard. So in those situations, you have patchwork to do. You've got to, have conversation with him, and you need to say, listen, this is, again, putting things in his lap. This is one of the biggest tools of our Masora that I'm going to teach you, is that the problem is, if you've got this problem, he keeps screaming at the kid, and you keep nagging and yelling at him to not scream. Don't stop screaming at the kids, right? Okay, so fine. So now you take the time and you say, when he's well fed, you're well rested, he's well rested, and you come and you put it in his lap. And you say, I'm not sure what to do. I feel like when you're yelling at the kids, there's two problems. One is I feel like it's hurting the kids. And the other thing is I feel like I have no voice in raising our children. I feel like I'm not validated, like you don't respect my opinion. You don't respect my advice or my ideas. So even if you said, no, I think it's much better for me to scream at the kids, at least I'd feel heard. But I feel you always just nod, but you don't ever change, and you're always yelling at the kids. Here you're putting it in his hands. What can we do about this issue? And he might say something like, he's not used to having these kind of warm conversations and communicating something very deep and challenging. So he might say, well, just leave me alone. You raise your kids the way you want, and I'll raise them. I'll do what I want. And you're like, well, can you think of a better way? Because it hurts the kids' feelings and hurts my feelings, that I feel like I don't have a voice in being able to control my own home or make harmony in my own home. So then he might say, okay, look, listen, I'll tell you what, if I yell, you have permission to say, stop yelling. And then you say, I would never do that in front of the kids. I want to have a united front with you. So I hear that. It's really nice of you to offer that suggestion, but I'm not willing to do that because I respect you too much. You've done a lot of, I hope you're witnessing, you built him up to something great. Now he's going to want to please you more because you've said something like this. And you say, and he says, well, what about if before dinner, you make sure that the kids are reminded not to chew with their mouth open. They're reminded they can't leave the table until they ask permission. They can't, whatever it is he's yelling at, you make a list of it, and then you tell the kids beforehand what the rules of the table, and maybe you post them on the wall. I don't know, but you come up with compromises. But you see, if you bring the issue to your husband in a way that he can hear it, then and give it over to him, it becomes our problem. Instead of you're mad at him and he's mad at you, it becomes our problem. So that is the key to getting over those resentments, so that you can become a bigger receiver. And whatever it is that your blockage is, and this is the homework, is to discover what the blockage is for you personally, what your personal blockage is to receiving. And that's enough of homework. I'm not going to say now overcome it. Okay. Just want you to sort of examine and do some introspection of what your personal blockage to receiving is. Okay. This is Leah Richheimer. We will see you next time. Thank you very much for joining us.